John.
I'm John Clark, representing the German Village Society, and I'm here at St. Leo Catholic Church with Mike Wolf. Mike, would you spell your name and tell me how old you are, when you were born, and all that?
It's WOLF, no E. Couldn't afford the E when we were little. That's my dad always said we were the poor wolves, not the rich ones from downtown. So I was born in 1944, November 20th, 1944.
And where were you born?
Right here in Columbus, Ohio. Baptized right here in this parish, and met him. Grew up here first 3 or 4 years, and then moved to German Village at St. Mary's, and my family was home was in German Village on Frankfurt Street, and we've lived there for 100 and some years. The family
Wow.
has. So,
Do you know much about your family tree? Who were your very earliest wolves, or
well,
if it was on your mother's side, how far back that goes and who it was?
on my mother's side, my grandparents came from Germany back in the 1800s, 1890s, and 1904, I think, was the last one that came here, and they settled in Sharon, Pennsylvania, and then moved here to Columbus in the early 1900s. So we've been
So you're German on your mother's side.
on my mother's side and my father's side also. His family came here in the 1800s, early 1800s, and settled in up around Leroux and Findlay and that area, northwest side of the state. So,
Who were your parents?
Elizabeth and Albert Wolf, and they were married for 40-some years and raised 10 kids, and so I'm the oldest of 5 boys, and I have 5 sisters. So.
And they've passed on?
No, all of them are living but one.
Really?
I lost one sister about 10 years ago. So.
So, what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was when I was a young fellow, he owned a freight line, commercial, freight line. And right after the war, he sold out and then went to work as a plasterer. He was a plasterer by trade. My grandfather was a plasterer. He was a mold finisher. He did the artwork type of plastering, like the Ohio Theater and stuff like that.
Oh.
He was noted for working there for a couple of years, doing all that beautiful work in there that's still there. Yeah.
One of the very skilled types of crafts.
And then my father picked up, did the plastering. We all grew up in the plastering trade. I did too, so I could plaster. I grew up plastering with my dad, mixing mortar and carrying it and cleaning, and all the things that related to the plastering trade. So I did that for all the years going into school and in high school, and then my dad was capable of doing anything. He was a plasterer, a carpenter, a painter. He could lay brick, he could lay block, he could do electrical work, plumbing. There was nothing he couldn't do, and I learned the trades and the skills from him. And I started as a laborer for him right out of high school. And of course, you had to work hard. And when you work for your parents, you work extra hard. And people on the job, saw me work as hard as I did and got me into the sheet metal trade. And I was in the sheet metal trade for 50-some years. I owned the sheet metal fabrication business in my last 20-some years at work. My brother and I were partners in that. So, and it's still in existence today, Wolf Metals here on the west side of Columbus. And it's a thriving custom sheet metal fabrication business. So we've been skilled craftsmen or, in the skilled trades for all our lives. So.
And the fact that you can do so much is basically the reason why we're in St. Leo today, and we'll get to more of that in a little bit, but you're the unofficial caretaker here?
Correct. That's what I do here. It's an unpaid job. I get a stipend for the liturgical stuff that I do and just to take care of the stuff for the church, but the work that I do here is all volunteer work. There's no pay, there's no compensation for the the painting, the plastering, the work, and I've got a lot of my own time and of course monies and stuff like that tied up in this building also. So
So let's talk a little bit about German Village and just living in the South End in general. What are your earliest recollections of living down here on the South End?
Oh my goodness.
That would have been late 40s, early 50s?
Late 40s, early 50s. I went to St. Mary's grade school in German Village and grew up there right on the same block as church, and went to church there just about every day. I served mass there every morning, 5:30 and 7 o'clock mass in the morning for years and years. Did that growing up and going to school, and lived there until I was about 20 years old. And then, well, really, I was 23. I left home when I was 23 and got married and moved to Thurman Avenue here on the south side, which is still part of Merion Village. It's not German Village, but it's Merion Village, just adjacent. And raised a family and have 2 sons and 3 grandsons, and they went here to St. Leo's for grade school, and we became members of the parish at that time. My grandparents were members of this parish from back in the 20s to when they passed away in the 60s.
I was noticing outside this building itself dates back to about 1915.
1915, yes. And that was the cornerstone laid for this building. But the original parish started in 1903.
So it was St. Leo in 1903, but in a different
Correct.
Building. Does that building exist today?
No, they tore that down here in 2000. It was in school. Behind here was a 12-room classroom building, and they tore that building down.
You mentioned going to St. Mary Elementary. Was that the one that we have today?
Yes,
or was it?
yes.
So you must have been among the first to attend.
Well, in 1956, that building on 3rd Street was built, but the building on Mohawk Street that is owned by the person that I'm going to think of his name here in a minute. Walters. Is where I started in school.
Oh, so that was...
I went to the first 6 grades in that building. So.
A lot of people remember it as a high school, but it did start out as either an elementary or for all 12 grades one.
It was elementary through the 12th grade there, yes.
Yeah.
And that changed in the late 60s, I believe, when Worley High School was built. That's when it became just an elementary school. Back
then, where did kids from your neighborhood who would go to Catholic school, where would they go to high school then?
Well, they went to St. Mary's in high school, or I went to Aquinas or St. Charles, or those were the predominant schools at that time. The St. Joe's Academy and St. Mary's of Springs, those were all the schools of choices that you could go to back in those days. The girls had 2 schools and the boys had 2 schools. So I went to an all-boys school, obviously, at Aquinas.
So the building on Mohawk at the time you were there, that was all grades or just elementary?
That was an elementary. The building that I was in was elementary there.
So where was the St. Mary's High School when you were there?
It used to be right behind it, and there was 2 classrooms in a building behind, and then they had buildings on 3rd Street that went behind, right aside of the church. There were high school buildings, and those have been all tore down. So for other buildings that have been put in there. So.
And that's in that probably where the connector is today, isn't it?
Right, the Berkeley building and stuff like that. But that building was new and replaced the old high school buildings that were in there. They had what they called bungalows. They were all wooden buildings that had classrooms in there, and had an old brick building. When I recall when I was little, that was there. But that's all been tore down. So.
And you grew up you said after about the age of 3 on Frankfurt
Street, right.
Near what intersection?
Frankfurt and Lozelle.
Lozelle.
Well, right behind Mohawk, right on the corner of the alley there, and you could hop the fence and go to church or go to school.
Did your parents own the house?
Oh yes, yeah. I was in the family since 1876, I think, or somewhere in that.
Is it still in the family?
Yes, my brother still owns the family home.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so it raised 10 kids, and so lived there all along.
So you remember back to roughly 1950 or so, and that was a good 10 years before we had the Restoration movement.
Oh yeah, right, sure. I remember German Village when it was before German Village.
Yeah,
so.
Of course. Can you tell me tell me a little bit about how the village looked then, how the neighborhood looked?
Well, it was old, and it was an old German settlement. I mean, it had a lot of people there, and it needed a lot of work, but it was still a nice area of town to live in. I always thought the South Side was the ideal place to live because every time you were going someplace, you were going away from the traffic. You never had to fight the traffic. If you were going downtown, everybody was coming in. You were going out, vice versa in the afternoon. You were coming in, and everybody was trying to get out of downtown. So, it was just an ideal place to live. I get 2 traffic lights and I'm on the freeway any way I want to go here. So, I mean, you can get any place from the South Side that you can't get any place. I fought traffic to go to my son's house in Powell the other day, and it took me an hour to go 13 miles. So, I mean, it's crazy at 5 o'clock in the evening. So, in the South End, I can get any place I want to go in about 10 minutes. So, it's a nice place to live.
Were there a lot of kids on your block? A lot of kids in the neighborhood?
Yeah, we grew up with a lot of people on the block. Yeah, and everybody came to our house and played, and we used to play baseball in our yard for years and years and years every day. And there wasn't a blade of grass in the yard, but we'd quit in the afternoon, water the dirt down. Mom would hang her laundry up, and back in those days we didn't have dryers. We had washing machines, but we didn't have dryers. And she'd hang her clothes up outside in the summertime, and we'd play ball there every day. And the neighborhood would come to our house because, I had 5 sisters, so everybody would come to our house and for my sisters and to play in the yard because my mom and dad allowed us to play in the yard. So we always had a good childhood growing up. So.
You said 5 sisters and how many brothers?
4 other brothers.
10
so
of you?
there was 10 of us.
10 of you.
Right.
What's the age range from youngest to oldest?
Oh, I think my oldest sister is, I want to say 75 maybe, and then they get down to probably about 60. Yeah, I have a younger brother that's, I think he's close to 60.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What did you do in those days?
A year or so.
I'm sorry?
I could be off a year or two, but
sure.
I don't keep track of it.
What about shopping in the village? Were there neighborhood stores?
Oh yeah, we had.
What kinds of stores do you recall?
I remember Mohawk Market. It's now, I believe, a beauty salon.
Tea salon.
But I grew up there, and you could buy anything at the grocery store. When I grew up, our family was. My dad was a construction worker, so in the wintertime they didn't work. And the grocer there, Walter Lynch, I'll never forget the man. We'd go into the store and get a loaf of bread or whatever, and he had a book and he'd write it down, a loaf of bread, whatever, 15 cents or whatever the thing it was. He'd keep a book for my dad. And as soon as Dad would get back full-time work, he worked every day, but he didn't have the steady income coming in the wintertime. And the grocer would carry us from like November or Thanksgiving until Easter time, and because work was scarce at that time, so they'd carry us on the books. That's how our family survived for years and years and years. The goodwill of the neighbor. As soon as Dad get back to work, he'd pay the grocer off, and we'd start all over the next year. And that's just the way we grew up. It was a great area to grow up because of the community. Merion Village was a great place. We used to have Shoemaker's Market, and which was from Haven, Haven, and that was Shoemaker's Market. You could go down there and get anything you needed. The barber shop was close there. And, everything was convenient there.
Where was the barber shop?
Well, we went to Johnny's Barber Shop. Well, when I first grew up as a small child, we went to Schmidt's over on 3rd Street. I think it was Schmidt's. And then we went to Johnny's Barbershop on Whittier and Mohawk, right off the corner there, right behind the Brown Bag
next
Deli.
to Brown Bag.
Yeah, right.
And that was
there.
a barbershop until just maybe
just
10 or 15
years ago. Yeah.
That's
It was
right.
a wonderful place, So it was, everybody knew everybody in the Merion Village area. The people knew the kids, and the kids knew who was around, and it was just a great place to grow up.
Was there any concern when you wanted to play after dark?
Oh, no, never. We used to go get our chores done in the morning, and whatever we had to do, the boys always had to take care of the yard. And of course, you always had to make your bed and clean up your room and stuff like that before you could leave the house. But everybody had their jobs to do around the house. But as soon as you were done, it was playtime. And we'd go to the park. Oh, gosh, we'd be at the park at 9 o'clock in the morning until supper time, if that was the case. But Mom always knew where we were at, and there was no concern. You know, it'd be a half a dozen guys would ride your bicycles down to the park, and you set up the bicycles as a backstop and play baseball all day long, or whatever we were doing, and just had a great time. So it was a great place to grow up. We never
And
had
your
any
sisters,
trouble.
where did they play?
Well, they played around the house, or they did, you know, babysitting jobs, and they were always doing something, you know, around the house, helping mom. Mom never, you know, well, mom worked around the house. I shouldn't say mom never worked, but mom worked around the house.
Didn't work outside the
She
house.
didn't work outside the house. She raised 10 kids, and that was enough, you know. So, but we had a great childhood.
I can't imagine 10 kids. Was it a very big house?
Oh yeah, a big house. Yeah, yeah. I think my bedroom. Well, we'd built an addition when we moved into the house. We built an addition, and I think my bedroom was like 26 by 18, and 5 boys slept in it with single beds, and we all had desks and stuff to do our homework at, and you know, closet, you know, plenty big enough. Sisters lived in. 2 sisters lived in one room, 2 lived in the other, or 3 lived in the other room. My mom and dad had another bedroom. So I mean, we had no problems growing up. We had plenty of space and a big house. So.
And as people left home, you had a little bit more space.
Oh yeah, sure. I think, you know, my sisters left. 2 of my sisters left before I did, and then I was the third. That you know, big house, big space, a lot of fun, and we still get together. You know, after all these years. Mom died when she was 93, and you know, that was the glue that held everything together was Mom. And we'd have 50, 60 people at Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that. Mom thrived with the family being around. You know, it was a big thing to have everybody in church. So, or in the house at one time, we'd go to church together. We'd do everything together as a family. You know, so.
Did your mom and dad have a lot of sisters and brothers? So you grew up with
My
all
dad
grades?
had 2 other brothers and a sister, and my mom had, I think there was 7 of them in her family. So, you know, they were big families and got along well.
Did you go outside the village for entertainment, to movie theaters or
Oh
anything
yeah,
like that?
you know, go down to the Markham Theater on a Sunday, and for a quarter you could watch a movie, or go downtown to the RKO Palace or the Grand or the Lowe's theaters, or you know, we had those theaters down there. And I'd worked all, you know, from the time I was 7 years old. I always had a job of some kind or another, and Mom and Dad never argued. If you had the money and you saved money and you had extra money, you could spend it on something that you wanted to do. And if you wanted to go to a show, you took a quarter out of your own savings and you went. And
Would that also get you popcorn and a Coke?
well, you could get it. You had enough to do everything you wanted to do back then. I mean, I did anyhow. I was very frugal. I never wasted my money, but I did a lot of things with the guys. We'd go to the show and, you know, hang out together, and never got in trouble or anything of that nature.
You mentioned the Markham. I'm trying to remember what that is now.
Well, it's no longer there. It's right next to the funeral home over here on High Street and Moeller. It was the Markham Theater, and it's gone now.
It's gone. I've heard of the Markham.
Yeah,
there were a lot of theaters in the area, weren't there?
Well, we used to have the Markham. We used to have the. I can't. I'll probably get it wrong, but there was a theater right over here on Parsons Avenue. I can't remember the name of it. I didn't frequent that too much, but we'd go to
Jaeger and
well, right at Gates and Parsons, there was a theater
over there too.
I can't remember the name of it. Right now,
then,
it's a bar
over next to Barcelona.
No. This is on Parsons now.
I think there was one next to Barcelona at one time.
Once upon a time, that was
maybe before your time.
No, it wasn't before my time, but we just never went there.
Too far.
Yeah, we'd go to the where the Barcelona's at. It used to be the Parkview Pharmacy, and that was on my paper route. I carried newspapers in that 2-block or 3-block area in there, and I'd stop at the Parkview every day to get a
and the
ice cream or
Parkview
pop.
was on the corner. There still was a Dival's next door to
Dival's
it, right?
was next door.
And then Dival's eventually moved into the other half as well.
Right.
And what was across the street from it then?
Nothing at that time. It was called the Recce, I believe. It was used to race cars in there umpteen thousand years ago, and I remember carnivals would come in there and set up before the Big Bear moved in there. But it was a carnival lot when we were kids. We played in there.
Do you remember it ever as a gas station?
No, No, not to my recollection.
I believe it was at one time, but I haven't been able to pin down exactly when.
Not in my thinking, but I mean,
Then I've heard others tell of a huge fire one night at a building on that lot, and
I can't remember
perhaps that was
that.
before your time too.
Probably was. I don't remember that. So,
what kind of movies did you see back then? Do you remember any of the titles?
God, I couldn't even tell you.
Were they serials where you saw the same thing
Oh,
week
you
to
get the
week?
westerns and the cowboy and Indian movies and whatever. It was just whatever was there, and if you wanted to go to a show, you could go. They're all good, clean shows. I remember Jerry Lewis and those kind of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Comedies. Yeah, that was all good stuff back in those days. We had a good time.
You mentioned that there's no trouble among you. I'm sure there were a few bad kids down in this area, but you never
I'm
had
sure
to.
there was, but we just didn't experience that.
Didn't seem to experience that at all.
No, we hung around with the kids that went to school with, and of course I carried newspapers. You had some few rough kids there, but nobody got in any serious trouble. It just wasn't. I mean, we did a lot of pranks and a lot of crazy things as kids, but not just like everybody else does. But we never got in serious trouble. Nobody.
What kinds of things did you do in the park? Play baseball?
All baseball.
Fish?
Yeah. No. Well, I guess I did fish a couple times in there, but we were instructed as kids to stay away from the water. You don't get into the water and you don't have any trouble. So we were. Mom said you don't go there. You don't go there. So. We listened. That's the way we grew up.
Obviously, the Catholic Church has been a big part of your life.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you and the church, your family and the church, sort of grew up together down here?
We went to church every Sunday as a family and grew up in church. We went to Catholic schools and got our education from the nuns. And I went to Aquinas for high school and was educated by the Dominican fathers, and just great educations. You can't beat that type of education. It was discipline, and I mean, real discipline in the Catholic schools. You didn't mess around. It's just I can remember getting smacked on the knuckles because I said something or did something wrong. And I believe in discipline. Everything I do is discipline oriented. And I'm the military. I believe in the military. I was in the service for 23 years and in the reserves and retired out of the military. So I believe in discipline. You had to have discipline or, nothing works. So, and if you're raised that way and your parents, I think I go back to my childhood. When Mom said no, that meant no. And if you didn't do that, then Dad stepped in and that was the final no. So, but Mom handled everything at home, and if Dad was there, he handled it. So
not too much negotiating.
No, you didn't question authority, not one bit. If you did, you suffered the consequences. I can remember the times we used to do dishes in shifts. Of course, there was 10 of us, but not everybody did dishes. But when you were, I think, 7 years old or 6 years old, big enough to stand on a chair to wash dishes, you learned to wash dishes. And we'd have teams, like 3 people at a time. One person would set the table, another person would clean up, the other one would wash, the other one would dry, or whatever. Somebody would take out the trash. Everybody had a certain job. And if I think the only time I can remember my dad, he always ate dinner with us, and we would go to the house, eat dinner, and if there was, he would go read the paper or sit in his chair for half an hour and relax before he would go out and work again in the evening. And if he heard you arguing or complaining about your dishes or what you were doing or somebody wasn't doing something, he would say, one more word and you got another week. And another week meant that you had to do the dishes for another week at that same level. So the rest of the crews would get backed up. So if you were off that week and didn't have to do dishes, you had another week of free time. So everybody was cheering, yeah, so, goof off. So I get another week of free time. So I mean, it was like a contest, So you did your job and you shut your mouth and you worked as a team, and we grew up that way. That's
It sounded like there had to be quite a system to it
Oh,
to keep 12 people in one house
worked.
organized.
It worked, you know. You know, it's just like dinner. Everybody sat there and had dinner, and we had the most fun at dinner time that you can imagine. The stories that were told and the laughs and the fun. That was our most exciting time of the day was dinner time. When my sisters were in high school and I was a little older, they used to come home and tell us stories about what happened in school and what somebody did, and you know, we'd laugh and carry on and just have a great time. And, you know, I sat right next to my dad, and the food always started at my dad, and it was passed from my dad to me, and I would set it down. I never passed anything. You start eating. If whoever ate the fastest got the most, and that was the theory. And you clean your plate up. You don't leave nothing on your plate. If you take it, you eat it. And we grew up that way. That was good solid advice. And I laugh at this every time I think about it. When I get lemon meringue pie, or my wife fixes it, or we have it at home, I think of when we were growing up. My dad would get lemon meringue pie. My mom would fix it special for my dad. That was his favorite. And the meringue had to be so high so it would touch his nose. He always said, I want it to touch my nose when I eat it. And everybody get a piece of pie, and we start to eat, and I would distract my sister to do something, and my dad would reach over and scoop the meringue off of her pie. And it was a tradition. It happened every time we had it, and she never caught. I mean, I think she caught on, but she never caught on. But it was a big laugh in the family because Dad would steal the meringue off her pie, and it was my cue to distract her so Dad could steal the stuff. And it was just stuff we grew up with and had fun at the dinner table. But that was the time we were all together. 12 of us sat down at the same time to eat dinner. We were never there for breakfast together or lunch or anything like that. We ate as a family in the evening, and Dad sit and rest for a half an hour, and then he'd go back out and work again every night. To raise 10 kids took a lot of money and took a lot of time. So he was a workaholic. He worked day and he worked night. We just had a great childhood. You know, Mom was the glue that held everything together, and you know, it just worked. So,
did you feel like you were middle class?
Oh yeah, I believe so.
Or did you even think?
Yeah, we didn't know what class was. You know, we didn't know that. You know, well, we knew that there was rich people because we always said, well, the Wolves downtown are the rich ones because they put the E on the end of their name, and we're the poor ones. We couldn't afford the vowel, and that was just a saying that we had in the family. And you know, and I still use that today. I tell people, WOLF, no E. We couldn't afford the E, so you know, don't put the E on the end. And everyone wants to put an E on your name when they write it. So it was just a funny thing that we could do and have fun with the name. But we never thought of anything about being rich or poor. We had everything as a child. You know, like I said, I worked since I was 7 years old. I used to get a nickel a day to carry in 42 newspapers for a kid that was lazy. And I'd meet him every day. He'd drop off the papers to me. I'd carry his route. He'd drink a pop at the grocery store. I'd meet him there when I was done and got a nickel, you know. So it was big time. Pulled weeds in the summer, cut grass, did whatever I had to do to make a buck. Not afraid to do anything. There's no job that's too dirty or too hard or that I won't do to make a dollar. You know.
Were you expected to share that money with your
No,
family?
no.
That was yours?
No. I did share, you know, like I said, when we grew up in the wintertime, there was no work in our family. And I can remember giving my mom money at Christmas time for the family Christmas and stuff like that. We just didn't have the extra money. And we knew that as kids, but we always had Christmas and we always had everything we needed. I don't think there was anything that went on that we didn't have or weren't involved in. You know, we all took music lessons. We all had, you know, band or, you know, singing, choir, piano lessons, whatever. If you wanted to do something, you could do it. And Dad would work extra to pay your bills or whatever it was. That's just the way we were raised. So if you wanted something and you showed a desire, you could get it. Mom and Dad would figure a way to do it. And we had everything growing up. So
I was thinking about just feeding 12 people.
Oh, my God. 5 pounds of potatoes and fixing all that mashed potatoes in a great big pot just to, and the food is just an enormous amount of food.
What did you have for dinner generally?
Oh, we'd have, the pot roast. We'd have, we had the meatloaves. Everything that you would normally have. G. Marzetti. Just you name it, we had it.
Meat and potatoes.
Oh, and meat and potatoes, and vegetables. And then on Friday, we had to eat fish. Mom was a stickler for fish. She fixed fish every way from Sunday to make us like fish. And my dad always said, "Do we have to eat this again?" It's just a joke. And he would say, "Here we are, Friday. We have to eat fish again." And he was just kidding, Mom. But she fixed swordfish, she fixed halibut, she fixed perch, she fixed everything to make us like it. And it was always good, but we always complained because we had to eat it. And when I think it was 19, and I want to say 62, but I can't recall the exact date. When the Pope said that you don't have to eat meat on Friday, or you can eat meat on Friday, you don't have to eat, fish. I always said, I thought it was wrong. There's people in the world that's their staple. That's what they want to eat is fish, and I have to eat it here, and I want meat. I don't want fish. And we go on and on about that. And I said, well, once the Pope said you don't have to eat fish on Friday or you can eat meat, I said, I'll never eat another piece of fish as long as I live on Friday. Now I'm 72 years old now, and since 1962, I don't think I've eaten a piece of fish since then. And it's not that I don't like fish or that fish is not good. It's just that I said I won't eat it, and when I say I'm going to do something, I don't do it.
So you don't eat it on Friday? You don't eat
I don't
it
eat it any time. I just refuse to eat fish, just because it's something we had to do when we were kids. Every Friday we had fish, and Mom fixed it. I mean, she fixed good stuff, but it's just because you had to eat it on Friday for her. And until she died, she ate fish on Friday, regardless of what they said. In the church, she ate fish every Friday. So.
But she allowed you kids and your father to do
Oh
something?
Yeah, after they changed, we could do what we wanted. But she had fish every Friday, so it's just.
Where did you get your clothes back then as a school kid? Hand-me-downs?
Well, we did that. We had cousins and stuff that would. Older, and we'd get their clothes or whatever, and that was a normal thing, to pass things down. My stuff went to my younger brothers, and I'd get stuff from the older cousins or whatever, and I can remember buying my own stuff. I always had money for some reason because I worked, grass cutting, this and that, and I saved my money, and I could buy whatever I wanted, and I could go wherever I wanted, and Mom and Dad were very, very good about that. If you worked hard for it, you earn it. You could,
Where would you go for those clothes when you could afford them?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. Lazarus. I mean, that was a main place. We went everywhere to buy clothes.
The streetcar? Did you use the streetcar?
The bus. Well, we didn't have the streetcar.
The bus was what ran then.
The bus was there, and we had the trolley cars. I do remember them, but. You ride the bus. I used to walk 2 blocks further just so I get my money's worth on the bus. The bus, I think the price was 7 cents to ride the bus back in the 50s or so. We used to go to the swimming pool, and I'd walk 2 more blocks further away so I could get a longer ride because they raised the price to 12 cents. I thought that was outrageous to go from 7 cents to 12 cents for a bus ride. And so I thought, well, I'm going to get my money's worth. I'd walk 2 blocks further. And it's just, when you're kids, you think stupid things. But
well, it's almost a doubling of the price.
Yeah, well, it was at that time. So, but it's just as a kid, we get on the bus or we'd walk. We'd walk from Merion Village to the Crystal Swimming Pool, which was out on Champion Avenue, and wouldn't think anything about walking that far to go to the swimming pool. Just. Either that or ride your bike or whatever. And you could do that back in those days. You could get on your bicycle and go any place and nobody'd bother you. And never had any trouble. Never. So just a great area to live when we were kids.
What about holidays? Being a devout Catholic, you probably celebrated more holidays than your
Well,
Protestant friends.
Christmas and Easter and stuff like that were big time in our family. Like I said, you know, when we were even older and adults, we still got together for Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Oh my God, we'd have 50, 60 people in our house at one time. Of course, we had a big house, but we all ate at the same time. We divided up. The older generations would eat in one room, and then the middle generations would eat in there, and the kids would eat in another room, and the grandkids and the nieces and whatever. But we'd have 50, 60 people in our house at one time eating, and just have a great time. Just great.
Did you say your house is where a lot of the celebrations took place
Oh
for
yeah,
your extended family?
in Mom's house, that's where, and we still meet there today. My brother owns the house, and we left it to my brother when my mother passed away, and there's 9 of us left in the family at that time, and we got together and decided, amongst us, that it would go to my one brother, and he restored the house, and his son is living in the house today, and we still have family functions there. We meet at Christmas and New Year's, and we'll sit there and watch the ball games and stuff like that in the family homestead, just like we did for years and years and years. So our family still is a close-knit group. You think if you had 10 people, you'd have 10 different ideas and 10, everybody be going a different direction. Not in our house. They come, I have sisters that live in Maryland. I have a sister that lives in Michigan, and they all come, and celebrate when they can, of course. But we all celebrate together, and we just have a great time. In fact, we're going to have a family reunion here the 1st of July, I believe. So we're anticipating probably about 100 and some people, I would imagine, with all the nieces and nephews and, that are there. And this will be probably our biggest family reunion that we've had in years and years and years. So we're all looking forward to it. So
I bet you and your brothers and sisters have collected some old photos of the family over
oh
the
my
years.
goodness, yeah, we have all the old pictures from great grandpa and stuff like that, and grandma. Yeah, the old photographs. And it's,
Many old pictures of the village.
well,
South End.
I'm sure there are, but I can't say I haven't looked at them in years, but I know they're all there. We have a room in the family homestead that's devoted to the family history. So there's all the pictures of great grandpa, this, that, grandma, great grandma in there. So, and all the wedding pictures are there, when they get married. So it's a family. If you wanted to go up there and see your history, you could see the history.
Very nice.
And I have a sister. My oldest sister is very good at the genealogy, and she's traced everything back to the German, where we came from originally. And we have cousins that live in Germany still. They're part of the family. So
Very nice.
we have a good time. Yeah.
Very nice. I'd like to hear from you a little bit about St. Leo now. Take me back, I suppose, to the closing and to what the building was like and how you got involved in restoration.
Well, St. Leo's was closed in 1998. There's many reasons why it was closed, financial reasons, population, various things, but it was closed. And this was supposed to have been removed, tore down, and so on and so forth. The school was tore down in 2000. And I was working in here, and they asked me at the time, because I was on the maintenance committees and the finance committees of the parish at the time, and I was no longer working in my business at that time. I had to leave my business in 1998. I had 4 strokes, and at the time I had 2 strokes, and the doctors forced me out of my business. So I was off work, and they closed the parish, and they asked me to stay on as the caretaker to look after the building until it was tore down or whatever they were doing. They had people that came in here and looked at windows, pews, various things. For a short period of time, they looked at it because they were going to remove the church and take the stuff out. And I got to thinking, I hate to see this place go. This is where I grew up at, as far as baptized, and was born here, and my parents were married here, and there's a lot of history here, and grandparents and so on and so forth. So I wanted to keep it, and my mom said something to me. She sort of egged me on. Well, why don't you do some work on it and fix it up? And I said, I can do that. And so I have oodles of friends that are contractors that I knew through my business and work relations over the years. And I'm not supposed to work on ladders, but I do, but I don't. So all the paint on the outside of the church needed to be taken off and redone. It looked pretty seedy. The old lead and oil paint was peeling off, and so I thought, well, I can paint this. So I took all the lead and oil paint off this entire building. It took me 2.5 years to take it off every window and recaulk and refinish every window. But I had a friend that was a contractor, Roberts Electric. They lent me a lift to get up and down, so I didn't have to get on ladders. And I did every window in this church.
You removed every window?
Every drop of lead and oil paint was taken off of this church, and so there's none on the outside of this building any place. So removed all that and cleaned all the wood, sanded it all down, repainted it and finished it, and I started on that. Was my first project here that I did, doing the church.
And I assume by that time you knew that there was a good chance you were not going to lose the church?
Well, no. People would come by and say they thought I was nuts spending my own money fixing the outside of the church, and they're going to tear it down. I said, well, I'm not going to have them tear it down looking nice. If they're going to tear it down, it's going to look nice. It's not going to look like it needed to be torn down. So I did that, and then I petitioned the diocese to fix the roof. We had a lot of water damage in here because the roof needed to be repaired, and they put a roof on. It took me several years to get them to do it, but they finally agreed to put a roof on. And I told them if they put the roof on, I'll restore the inside of the church. And of course, they had no idea what I was talking about. And I didn't know what I was talking about, to be perfectly honest with you, but there was a lot of plastering that needed to be done, and the paint needed to be redone. Just everything needed to be done in here. So again, my mother sort of goaded me on to do it. She said, you can do it. Just get in there and do it. And
again, you were thinking this building is going to be torn down.
Yeah. Well, there was always that potential. Nothing was ironclad and nothing was done. But once the bishop put on a new roof on here, I knew it was going to be here, because my thinking was, if you're going to keep the building for whatever purpose, you're going to sell it or you're going to do whatever you're going to do with it, if you don't fix the roof, you're going to have nothing. So if you fix the roof, at least you'll have a building that's structurally sound. But if you let it go, you'll have nothing. And I think they listened to me on that respect and put the roof on, which was very generous of them. And I said, well, if you fix the roof, I'll do the inside. And that's how it all started. And I did all the plastering in here and repaired all the cornices, cleaned all the walls with chemical sponges and took all the soot and the crud off of them and primed them, painted them, did all the stencils, did all the gold leafing. All the stuff that's done in here is all new. Every inch of the inside of this church has been redone.
Every square inch has been touched by you in some way or another.
Somewhere along the line. And I didn't. At the time, I couldn't allow anybody in here to do any work because it was, there was no insurance, there was no nothing. Well, I'm retired from the military, so I have my military insurance. So there was no. I don't worry about anything anyhow. So I would come in here and work, and I have friends that would come in and help me build scaffolding and stuff when I needed extra hands. But the painting and stuff I had to do by myself because I didn't want to take a chance of somebody getting hurt in the building. So I painted every inch of this church inside and out. Restored all the artwork, all the stencils. Everything in here has been completely refurbished and redone. The pipe organ was another project that was done in here. That took I spent 2.5 years redoing the inside of the church, and then spent 3.5 years on the pipe organ.
That is what, when I think my ears perked up when I first heard about you,
Yeah.
that you didn't really know anything about
Oh
repairing
no, I knew nothing about it.
pipe organs, but
No.
you repaired this old pipe organ.
I had an organist that came in here that played, and he was a very intelligent man, Tim Smith, very smart, very good organist. And he played for some of the big churches in town, and now I believe he's on the East Coast someplace. I have lost contact with him. But he told me that he said, we can rebuild this organ. It needs a lot of work done. He said, we can do this. And he said, if you can do what I tell you, we'll be fine. And I said, well, I can do anything. And that's my attitude on everything. There's nothing that I'm not willing to try or do. If you tell me what I have to do and show me, I can do it. So we started and took every pipe out of this church, and we cleaned them all, and we had to ship them out to have them revoiced and retuned and fixed so that they would play the right sound.
Right pitch.
Because of the windage was changed. We changed the wind pressure because of the size of the organ and what we were doing. So it required the mouths all to be adjusted and changed. So they all had to be shipped out to various companies around the country that do certain pipes, and they are all adjusted and fixed. And so, like I said, it took 3.5 years to do this, but all the leathers were repaired. And, I had cooperation from the people's, well, this gentleman to start with, and then he left to go to take a job on the East Coast. So I'm left without my knowledge. And there was 2 companies here in Columbus and Johnstown that stepped up to help me finish the project because they knew what I was doing and that I was doing it on my own. And they're great organ builders to start with. One's People's Herzog over on the west side of Columbus. They stepped up and helped me, and the Muller Company out of Utica, up in that area, Johnstown, Utica, helped me to do the things that I needed to do to finish the project up. So without their assistance, I'd really been at a loss. But they would come in and say, do this, this, and this, and then I would build that, and do whatever they showed me to do. And
sounds like a lot of money also from you.
It started out about a $50,000 project to start with, and it ended up about $150,000 or better. So it really got involved because once we got into it, we found more things that needed to be repaired or replaced. And in order to do it correctly, you want to do things right. So if it's not up to standards, you don't want to do it. And it's just like there's one instance, there was a set of pipes in here. It's a trumpet. And it's an integral part of that organ is a trumpet. I mean, when it's played, and the tuner that come in to voice it at the end said it was just not right. You could tell it's been reworked so many times over the years and adjusted that there's just not much room to fix it anymore. So he said, we've got to either get a new one or do something else or not use it at all. And it was well, to make it right, let's replace it. So to replace that one rank of pipes was like a $20,000 addition. So, but I'm one of those people that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it first class to start with, or I'm not going to do it. Or, we're just not going to do something half and say, well, that's the best we could do. Either not going to do it at all, or we're going to do it right. So I said, we'll do it, and we raised the money to do this $20,000 addition. So it's like 32 pipes or so, and they were specially made in Germany. See, and they have to make the same alloy to match the tonal quality of this organ versus any other organ. You just can't take pipes out of one and put them in another that don't match the tonal quality, I believe. I believe that's the correct way to say it. But so they had to analyze the material that was in the pipes and then fabricate new ones to match the same, so they would have the same sound or the same tonal quality to fit this organ. So it's, it gets involved, and it really, escalates the price when you have to do that stuff. But
How many total pipes in the organ do you know?
There's supposed to be around 3,900 pipes in there.
How many?
3,900 pipes.
3,900.
Yes. Now there's two chambers. There's a chamber in the back, the main, and there's a celestial organ above our head here. It's in a room by itself. That's when we started turning this down. We rebuilt this section, the echo organ or the celestial organ first. We increased its size from 200 pipes to 600. So we have an organ to play during services. If we had weddings or whatever, we could play this section of the organ from the front. When I tore that down, there was no sound that came out of the back of that organ for 3 years. So this was the main organ. So we used this till we got that all totally together. So it was quite an undertaking. And, you know, I worked in here every day on it doing something. There was not one day went by. And Saturdays, Sundays, a lot of times I worked in here to get that together and finished. So a lot of work.
Tell me about hearing from the diocese, or I don't know, maybe it had to come from Rome. I don't know, that the church was not going to be destroyed.
Well, there is nothing in writing to say that it's not going to be destroyed. It's not going to be taken down. They could take it down tomorrow. The bishop has the right to do whatever he so desires to do. I mean, he is still in charge. And, you know, I work for the downtown office theoretically, and whatever they say, I do. Now, they're very, very good with me. When I decide to do something here, like remodeling, putting new bathrooms in and stuff like that, I have to raise the money, obviously, or I have to come up with the money to do a project and tell them that this is what I want to do. But I always put them first and say, the building department part of the diocese, I tell them, they come out here and I go over everything. I say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and here's how I'm going to do it. And they say, yeah, that's a great idea, and they go along with me. They've never once said, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. So all my ideas, because I try to do it in detail with them to inform them exactly what I'm going to do ahead of time, they're all good with it. So they've been very good with me as far as allowing me to preserve the church, you know, so it can be used. And I think because of that, they use this church now on weekends we have a Korean Catholic community that worships in here on Friday nights and Sundays. The Korean priest lives in the rectory full time, which gives us the use of the church and has a meaningful use. They pay rent to the Diocese of Columbus, you know, for the building, and I maintain it and keep it up and do the work here.
So is it paying for itself now?
No, it'll never pay for itself. There's not enough rent money that comes in here to take care of the building. All the maintenance and stuff that's done in here, we do ourselves. St. Leo's people, through our Preservation Society, raise money.
You must feel pretty hopeful about this place.
Well, there's no illusion on my part that it'll ever open as a parish again. But the diocese has allowed us to use the facilities for weddings, funerals, special occasions, anniversary masses, you know, special things that go on here. We have, I had the seminary students at the Josephinum come here, and they'll do special masses and stuff here because they can come in here and they don't disrupt the other parishes because this is open. So they may call me up on a Thursday and say, well, we want to have a memorial mass for so-and-so, such and such, or on a feast day or something like that, and come in here and do a mass. It's fine. I'm more than grateful to have them come in here. And we set up and do everything that's necessary so they can do that. But you can't do that in every parish because they got functions going on in all these churches, and times are, you know, set up so they can't do things. But it's, you know, it's here, and we want to use it, and, you know.
And is the organ getting the use it deserves?
Oh yeah, right. So we use it for every wedding and every funeral, obviously. It's not played every day. I can play it any time I want to. I have a machine that sets up, that records the notes that are played, and I can play back a song that the organist has played and use it to demonstrate to other people. And I use it for brides that come in here that are planning their wedding and they want to hear what the sound of the organ is for some of the bridal music, and I have that, you know, set up on a not on a disc, but you know, they're recorded, so I can
Something like
put
that.
in a song that they'll have played,
But you
and
don't
they can
play it.
hear. I don't play it, no. So they can hear it. I had a tour group in here well, a couple years back, and I turned the organ on so they could hear it, and they thought I was up there playing, and they were, you know, applauding. I said, you know, no hands. I mean, but I was sitting at the keyboard, you know, and this machine takes over. And all it does is record the notes and the stops that are pulled. That's all it does. So it plays exactly back what the organist played, as far as, it's like a player piano, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that.
So what's next for you here? You mentioned putting in some
I'm
new
working on
restrooms.
air conditioning in here. I'm trying to raise money to finish the air conditioning.
Has it ever been air conditioned?
There's never been air conditioning in here. We've lasted for 100 years and never had air conditioning in here. And people come in here for weddings and stuff and say, gosh, it's not air conditioned. But we've had weddings in here in August that are 90 degrees, and you're only in here for 45 minutes anyhow, and it's not that big of a deal. We open the windows and it's nice. But now, in here right now, it seems cool. Well, I have air conditioning in the sanctuary and in the restrooms because I rebuilt the restrooms this year. So I put air conditioning in there because I could put it in at that time, in the sacristy over on where the priests dress. So I put air conditioning in those rooms, and it filters out into the church, and it takes the humidity out of here, and it's nice in here now. It's comfortable. It's not air conditioned, but it's comfortable. It's coming from the other side. So, but that's the project that I'm working on right now, is the air conditioning of the church.
Do you see an end to your work here?
I hope not. You know, I get up every morning and I have so much to do here. I'm excited to come here to work. You know, it's not like it's a job. It's something to do. I mean, I tell all my friends, it keeps me off the street and out of trouble, and keeps sanity with my wife. You know, if I was sitting at home retired, I'd drive her nuts probably. So I come over here and I enjoy coming here every day. It's not work. When you enjoy what you're doing, it's not work. I love what I'm doing here. I love to fix something and make it right, and take something that's broke and try to straighten it out and make it, you know, useful again. Keep something that's old looking the same way. When I did these bathrooms over again, somebody said, well, why did you do this? And I said, well, I didn't want it to look brand new. I wanted it to look and blend in with the old part of the church. If you make it look new, it looks new. I want it to look the same as the rest of the building, have the same character. And when you change stuff and you don't think of those things, you just destroy the natural beauty of the place. And I think this is a beautiful place. When I was a kid, I didn't care for it because all this marble. You know, I thought it looked out of place. It looked cold to me. But the more I'm in here, the more beautiful it looks, and it's you know, I walk in here every morning and I look at this window above you on this side, and the sun's coming through it, and it's the most beautiful window in the whole place. And when I leave here in the evening, it's the window on this side, and that's the most beautiful window. And it's just, I do that every day because I make my rounds in the church and I walk through it every day. Make sure this is not leaking, or that's not broke, or this window's shut. And I do it every day in here, and it's just part of my daily routine. And I love it. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have this place to come to work every day. You know,
Thank you, Mike.
I find projects to do. I find things that need to be done and just do them.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're quite welcome.